on that because it was, when the idea was first presented, I think some people expected that there would be multiple rounds, not just two. So the question I want to ask is there a finite number of rounds that you would find useful, or would 5 be as useful as 3? I was thinking of making a limit of 3, but just wanted to throw that out to the group. And the idea is that you go through the first round, applicants would go through a first round, and you would be able to, all the criteria that can be set now for your initial round, you would actually be able to customize for each round. So let me give you an example. If you had, I'm just going to jump out of this and go into the program. Sorry, we have super low screen resolution here, so. Okay, so on the setup page, and let's take this for example. Right now we have one begin date and one end date. Well, if we include multiple rounds, you would have 2 sets of dates for each round for your deadline. That's just an example, but the reason this is such a big enhancement is that everything that we were configuring for the single round that exists now will have to be configurable for every single round. And that's useful because when you look at this part here, right now you're setting them you would be able to set, okay, so for the first round we really care about these 4 things. For the next round, maybe then we care about everything, or we care about only 2 things. So the idea would be that you would be able to step your reviewers through the process, and you would be able to define what sections were available to them and how they were scored. So any feedback on that? Anybody have, would you do now your manual process, you go multiple rounds now? Somebody must have, because it was one of the biggest enhancement requests on the list. Would everybody be okay with 1 round? Then I don't have to do anything.
I have a question.
Yes.
So on the second round, you're not going to see some of the applicants that have been...
Exactly, like they wouldn't have made it to the second round. It's like American Idol.
How would they know that?
Pardon?
How would they know that?
The applicants?
Yes.
They wouldn't.
Oh.
No, this is all internal. It's sort of, it's part of your internal review process. So you start with the applicants at, in the first stage. And if you only have 1 stage, then it's just the way it works now. That you allow the faculty to make the final decision in that first round. But with this approach, at the end of the first round, sort of the final decision would be, advance to the second round. As I've noted here, there would be multiple ways to actually move them to the next round. You could decide you wanted to move them based on their score. You could decide to move them based on the final assessment, or you could decide that you want to be able to move them manually. Let's say you don't have that very many students, and you prefer to just review what everybody wrote or scored and then make a decision, maybe as a group around a table or something. You could do that manually.
Or if they come complete a little later?
Yes.
That's kind of the thing too. Then you would move them manually?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You mean if somebody was stalled in the first round because you needed
right, we didn't have all of their documentation,
exactly, yeah.
So they would be a manual move for it.
That's right, that's right. Or you could just make a note in there that they were missing this, but it came in late. So on the multiple round, 2 rounds? No rounds? 1 round? Okay, well, I can't believe nobody here requested a 2-round, but it's going to be in there. So, but it won't get in your way if you only want 1 round. That's going to be, that's why this is so difficult for me to do. I just have, because it affects everything. Once you add that second dimension, it's like doubling all the configuration. And then if you add a 3rd round, it's tripling it. Well, we'll move on from that one, since it seems like everyone here is okay with 1 round. Another big enhancement for this is going to be a consolidated summary report. That's something that isn't in there now, and I think is desperately needed, especially when you have applicants who may have been reviewed by multiple faculty. There's no easy way to say, give me 1 page that lists all their scores for each category, all the comments that were made in one place. And what in the next release of this, there's going to be a report available right on the list page. So you don't even have to dig into the, the actual data entry page. You can just get a quick consolidated report of what everybody wrote or scored if you have both of those options enabled. So any other comments about a report, things that you want to see on it? I'm going to include everything that's on there, and we'll see how that goes, because I think that there may be a need for even a more, I guess, a briefer report than everything. For example, to give you the option to say, yeah, I want that report, but I don't want all the comments, or I just want the comments and the scores. So I'll take a look at that, but for now, the first version of that report is going to have everything, and then we'll take it from there if you want to be able to make it a little bit more compact. Okay.
What kind of format would that report be in? Something downloadable to a Word or Excel or something like that?
No, but that's a good idea. I mean, I could put in it's actually just going to be a printed report on the page. But if exports would be helpful, I could add an export feature to this. Would that be useful? Okay. Okay. Export, good idea. Okay, that's your one enhancement for the day. No more. I got my eye on you. Yeah. Thank you, that's good. Okay, yeah, so we can dump everything into an Excel spreadsheet. You can download that. And I'm going to be talking in a minute about the reporting repository that we have now available to campus. And that's information that we could also put into that database for access. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to jump down to the faculty reviewer comments. Right now, the way it works is you're allowed to allow comments per section, and there could be general comments for every applicant. And of course, when we add rounds, that would also work for each round. But there's no way for internal dialogue to take place between the reviewers. And this is internal. This is something that won't be on a report. This is just a place where maybe the 3 or 4 faculty who are assessing applications can put in their own notes and have a little conversation that would be readily available, easily available on the screen where you actually see the different documents and you do the scoring. So from there, you'd be able to see, and from the list page, you'd also be, there's going to be an icon that you would click, and it would show the sort of internal discussion about the applicants, but about each applicant. But this isn't something that would be reported. It's just, and maybe it could be. I just thought, and this was brought up to sort of, like a collaborative feature to be able to communicate about applicants. And again, not necessarily tied to an individual section or the overall review, but a different place where a conversation could take place. Does anybody think that would be useful? I guess that won't be useful if you have one faculty per assessment, but as soon as you start adding multiple, I think that's a very useful tool. Okay. Any questions about that? Okay. Yeah, the person who requested said it should work like wiki links, and I'm not sure what that is, but I'll find out. And I just think it's a conversation. You see the person's name, you see what they wrote, the date, and things like that, and then other people can comment. The interface improvements, the current interface is, it's going to look super ridiculous on this screen up here because of the low resolution. But if I go into the actual review interface, this can be improved. I've wanted to improve this since I did it. So this is going to be a lot more user-friendly. Notes will be available on that screen. What else do we have here? Yeah, just a better visual indication of what's done and what isn't. I use this accordion control, which is nice, but it hasn't given me enough control, and there are better options now for the interface. So what I want to do is I want to keep everything on one screen, but make it, for example, for each of these sections, if I put in the score, it doesn't show up in that title band. You know, it'd be nice to be able to look at that and say, okay, these sections are done, these aren't, here are the scores, all in one place. So that's going to be a major overhaul, a major enhancement to this module is going to take place on this screen. And this is where you would also have that, that sort of conversational feature. I'll have it pop out probably from the top.
Mike, we have a question, thank you.
Just related to this, it would be nice if, and I don't know if this is the right place to do it, but it would be nice if there was just a quick snapshot screen that showed basic data like the ethnicity, the gender, about the applicant, both to look at here and when you do the PDF that faculty can look at.
Okay.
And I think I remember it almost like a summary sheet that just pulls out key pieces of information.
Okay.
I thought I remembered that you had said that that might be something that would be incorporated or available at some point, and I just wondered if that's still on the radar as something we might be able to have.
It is, the issue with that really, it boils down to how do I build an interface that is customizable enough so every group can say, I want these fields on that summary page.
Right.
I will make a note of that, and it would be that would actually be nice on the screen. So we just go to the application list. So if we created a new local checklist item for that option, it would be a sort of internal use only option. But here's where you'd have to upload it. You know, did you see how I got there from the applicant list? I just clicked attachments and.
We would be the only ones that would see it.
That's right. Yeah, it would be for your eyes only. And when you created the checklist item, there are the three options. I'll just go there rather than describe. So when you created it, you would just check this. This is a default one, so I can't change it. But you would click this office use only option, and if you chose that, then it's for your eyes only. And I believe that would work fine. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a note of that, okay? And just kind of walk through it and make sure it works as expected.
Like, do you know if there's a way to have that checklist only be available if they're under video review? So, for instance, if a student's accepted, then the acceptance letter and the other, that kind of pops up, but it doesn't pop up until they're accepted.
Wait, can you repeat from the beginning?
So when a student's accepted, that new checklist item, like an international student, it'll pop up saying official acceptance letter. But
Yes.
You can't see that unless they're accepted.
That's right.
Could we make a checklist that only pops up when they're under video review? So that when we're processing, we don't have to look at that checklist the whole time, that checklist item? Like, for instance, this PDF, we would only have it if they're under video review. Is that possible or no?
Anything's possible. But yeah, that makes sense. I'm just trying to think quickly how I would do that.
Could you have it be a filter, like you do with like the email manager, like set status, whatever, so it'd just be another filter under required when?
Yeah, that's possible. I would just have to hardwire sort of that checklist item to the review portal, and there's a loose connection there now, but I'll make a note of that and look into it. It may be possible. Uploadable summary, and then we want the ability to hide until review. On the checklist tab. I'm not going to be able to read my own writing later. I hope somebody else is taking notes. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so any other questions about this? Yes?
It's not exactly about that. With the single PDF, when you do like print all documents, if the candidates or their letter or the references are uploaded like Word docs, then they don't show in that, you get the little arrow thing when you print all docs.
Yes.
And I think you had used to do back-end conversion, but you had said it was too much. Is it possible?
No, let me just, well, go ahead, you finish your
I was
question.
going to say, is it possible to make it so that PDFs are the only accepted format then?
That's a good point. Here's the issue with the docs. If you ever go into the print all and you see a doc in there, the problem is that our conversion routines could not change it to a PDF.
Okay.
90% of the documents that are uploaded are not PDF. We convert them all behind the scenes. So if you ever see a doc in there, there's something very wrong with that file. It can't be converted. Sometimes there are, well, actually, I should say, there are probably more problems with PDFs that are protected with passwords. You know, if you have a PDF that somebody uploads a PDF that has a setting on it that says it can't be printed, we also can't combine that with other documents. But with Word files, it's usually there's an error in the document. And if you download and try to open it, I mean, I've been able to do that and just jump through hoops to say to make some doc file a PDF manually and then upload it, but it's a lot of work. So I really would love to be able to say, for letter recommendation especially, the only format we're going to accept is PDF. And I don't think that's too demanding, since it's pretty easy to print a PDF. But faculty, for some reason, students do a great job converting to PDFs. We have it's like 99.999% success conversion rate on those PDFs, but faculty, for some reason, when they upload those letters of recommendation, we've had nothing but problems. And I mean, the conversion rate's still above 99%, but out of 200,000 documents, I think we only had 2,000 we couldn't convert. It's pretty good, but it's still annoying. When you go to print and then you have to do that separately, and it's the same thing for international. They do pretty much the same thing there, and they're calling me all the time about certain documents. But I mean, what do you guys think? If we said, do you think it's unreasonable for us to say that for letters of recommendation, file format must be PDF?
No, I think we should.
Okay, I think so too. Okay, good. So
Mike,
I think that,
there's a question back there.
yes?
Just to address the last point and then bring it closer. At the point of submitting the recommendation, for example, couldn't the system do a check whether it's convertible or not and pop up an error message?
Unfortunately, no, because it's not a real-time conversion. There's just too much going on for that to happen.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
But I do want to reinforce the idea that a single PDF file with everything in there is very useful to faculty. That's how we review proposals.
Yes.
And we're not intimidated by a 100-page file as long as we can quickly scroll into it. But we are intimidated by 10 different windows that we have to open one file at a time to see what's happening. And if files are missing from this master PDF file, that's actually detrimental to the applicant, because if we don't see it in there, we believe it doesn't exist.
Okay.
So maybe you can then reinforce from the side of the applicants that don't protect the PDF files or whatever, so that we don't have to go back and forth until we get to this master file that is everything up in there.
Yes. No, I agree. Those are all valid points. It's just right now it's difficult to sort of go back, and I know exactly how many documents we couldn't convert, and it's got to be a relatively low amount. But if it happens 1 out of every 100, that's still really annoying.
It felt like a lot, though. I mean, I know you're saying 99 point whatever, but I would say out of the applicants we reviewed, it was a sizable percentage that had Word documents where faculty had to go in and look at those different windows. So it seems like more than maybe you're thinking that it is. That was our experience.
Okay. Well, I know the exact number of documents we couldn't convert.
Unless it just happened to be the ones that completed and went.
There was a period, I mean, when's the last time you looked? Because I did update about 2 weeks ago, and there were about 10,000 documents that I converted over a weekend using another technique.
Is it a timing thing though then? Because if someone uploaded stuff and then they were reviewed fairly soon after that.
No, it should be, I mean, in most cases, the documents will be converted within 10 seconds.
Oh, okay.
But I liked the idea that this gentleman proposed to just evaluate the document immediately. But the best way to solve this problem is to just tell even applicants, it has to be PDF format. I mean, that just solves the problem. It's a lot less work on the back end for us, because, we have to jump through hoops. If we can't get the first conversion, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes to try to convert a document, and I prefer to just skip it. It's nice that we can do the document conversions, but it just seems like, and this has been like a 2-year experiment, and I think we've learned that, at this point, I think we know enough to know that it isn't a lot to ask an applicant or a reviewer to upload a PDF, and it'll make all of this easy for us, especially me, and that's why I want to do it. I'm selfish. If I get one more call from International about a document, I'm just going to scramble to pull out what's left of my hair.
You'll look like me.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, anything else on faculty review? Yes? Oh, sorry.
Doesn't matter.
No.
Okay, my faculty seemed really challenged last year about seeing that year's view, because they have to go in and change
The filters.
the filters.
Yeah, that's actually an enhancement that I made, but I didn't put it on the list because I couldn't put it under minor enhancements. Now when you go in, it's going to default to the current, the most
For
recent.
faculty?
Yeah, it's going to be the most recent. Now with those faculty, if they were to set their filters the next time they logged in, it would retain those settings. It's just the first time they go in, it doesn't know where to start the filters. But after they've made their settings and logged out and back in again, it knows to reload those settings the next time. But the first time is the most important time because they're new to it. They don't know where to start.
So they need to change the settings. They need to change the year.
They won't need to anymore.
Oh, they won't need to. Okay.
But it'll default to the most current.
All right.
But if they want to go back, they can do
Oh,
that.
okay.
They can still. It's just that default setting where people are going in and saying, "Well, I'm looking at last year's reviews. Where are the current years? I just got this email, the reminder email." So that change has already been made.
Right.
So that's going to be rolled out with the rest of these. Yes.
One thing, I think that the need for PDFs in terms of letters are important, but also clarity of language for those recommenders, because I know that our staff fields a lot of questions from recommenders about how to upload and things of that nature, and that some people really just want to understand what it means to submit a PDF versus a Word doc. What we might assume that they do is making sure the language in the email they receive makes it clear how they need to save their file, like if you can make sure that it's easy for them and it's easy for us too. So.
Okay. Well, the invitation that goes to recommenders to upload, we have a default template, but you're allowed to customize the instructions in that.
Okay.
So if you know how to do that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you could put some comments in there, but the thing we could do it at the sort of the university, the default for realized recommendation, but most departments have already overridden that with their own.
Okay.
So there would be no place for us to. We could put the instructions on the main site.
All right, that's perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Was there one more question? No. Okay. Okay. So let's talk about I really don't have anything to show you for the reporting warehouse because it's just a SQL Server database. But I want to talk about what's in there and why it's important and kind of neat. We have about 15 or 16 years of graduate admission data in our database now, which is probably more than almost any other school. Consolidated, we have all graduate admission data in one place here. And that's nice, it was in the GradMed database, but most schools couldn't get to it unless they were looking through this interface. We have a limited export engine in there now where you can select the fields and then dump them out into an Excel file or a CSV file. But there were limitations. You were limited by the number of fields you could choose. It was a 255 field limit. And in a lot of cases, it just took too long to go back, say, 10 years and we were also exporting every night for about 7 different schools. So every night we would create these CSV files and put them out on UBFS, and they would go and they would take this text file and they would bring it into their database, SQL Server, Access, or whatever. So there were a lot of steps involved there, and this is a very expensive thing for our server every morning to generate those files. It would take about an hour every day, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is. We almost have nothing else that takes that long. That, you know, a lot of jobs run every night for our server. For example, we go out to InfoSource and pull in standardized test scores or e-pay information. Things like that take 5 minutes each, but that school export was really, really expensive in terms of server resources. So what we've done is we've taken a snapshot of all the data, all the admission data in the GradMet database, and we put them out into a SQL Server database that's accessible by essentially anybody who wants or needs access to it. And instead of just giving you, 250 fields, what we do now is at the school level, we give you every question from every application for that school in one location, one view in the database. So all of those people who are taking our text files before, they can just hit our database now directly. They can say, just give me all the fields, and I'll bring them in and bring them into Excel or Access and do my reporting there. What I've done is I actually created those views for every single school in the GradMet database, even though at this point only 6 or 7 are taking advantage of it. So if there's anybody here who think it might be useful to have access to all of your data, all your application data in one location, let me know. And what we have to do is we just have to get your static IP address so that your computer can sort of get through the firewall to our SQL Server. But we've set up, I think we have about 12 people set up now, and it's working wonderfully. So every night it refreshes the database. I think we could probably do it twice a day because the update only takes about 20 minutes. And I say 20 minutes, and I was complaining before about the other job. This is 20 minutes of moving about 8.5 gig of data, from GradMet to SQL Server. So, and it used to take 8 hours. So it's very fast now, very reliable. And going forward, we're going to be pushing out all the other information into the same location. So when you log in, you'll have access to different views. For example, you can have an application view, or just a table. Think of it like a big spreadsheet of your application data, and then a big spreadsheet of your checklist data, status change logs. I had 3 or 4 different categories. Pretty much everything in GradMet will be reflected there for easy access. And there are data dictionaries, so you know where all the fields are and all that too. So if anybody's interested in taking a look at that, let me know. I know there were, is anybody from social work here? No, okay. Well, yeah, we just had social work. I was just wondering if they got into that yet. If anyone's interested, just email me, mcrusso@buffalo.edu, and and I'll tell you what you need to do to get in. Okay? And there was one other thing. Oh, any questions about the reporting database? Yes?
Along with the reporting, I just want to know, as far as, say, cleanup work on the applicants, somebody like a international applicant that's working through sponsored and either decides to come or not come, if they're not going to show as accepted, or even an international that we're waiting for financial and then they don't send it, how should they appear in GradMet so that it properly would reflect? Because if it's pulled as a report, it wouldn't appear correctly then.
Oh, you're talking about how that applicant would appear in this sort of snapshot view in our new database?
Right, because if they're waiting, if we're still waiting for financial documents, so then they don't come, how should their status read so that it would reflect correctly?
Well, the status in our reporting database will be exactly what it is inside GradMet. We push everything. Now, let's say you just wanted your accepted applicants. Well, your query then would be, give me everything. And then, I don't know if you've used Access or whatever, but you can just choose the field and say, I want only applicants who have this status, AC. And then that would just give you your accepted applicants and leave everyone else there. You see, you only pull down what you need. You don't have to pull down everything from the reporting database. It's essentially the raw materials for you to create your own reports locally in Access or in Excel. But just think of it as a giant spreadsheet with all the information inside, all the information that's in Gravit is there. And again, if you haven't done a lot of that sort of external reporting, it may not sound like a big deal, but for all those schools who struggled with, getting, leaving us having to leave 50 or 60 fields off of that export because we were limited by the number of columns that we could export, they're ecstatic. And to just be able to, to pull up their database client, whether it's Access or Excel or SQL Server Management Studio, and just point at a resource and get their information is, compared with what they were doing, which is taking a text file from UBFS and jumping through hoops to get it into their database. They're all very pleased so far. Okay, any other questions about that? Is there anybody here who might be interested in looking at that? Okay, good, great. So just email me and I'll tell you what you need to do to get access. Okay, and the last thing I want to talk about is some of the changes that are going to be coming for Gravit. I'm going to work on faculty review probably for another 2 weeks and wrap that up and get those changes into production. After that, I'm going to spend the rest of the summer working on the framework updates. Right now, we're on an older platform. And it's a good platform, but in order for us to move forward, we really need to start taking advantage of some of the newer technologies. This became abundantly clear to me when I wrote the export engine that fed our new SQL Server database. We need to update our technology. So what I'm going to be doing is swapping out our current framework for a .NET framework. What that means to you is it'll be faster, and we'll be able to do some of the cooler things that you might see in more modern sites. Not that I couldn't do them now. It would just be a lot more difficult to do some of those things. So it's going to look different, a lot cleaner. I mean, if you go through Gravit now, you can look at some screens and say, oh, that's a nice screen. And then you look at some other ones, and it looks like 1996 called and wants their interface back. So it's all. I'm going to make sure all that's uniform. There are going to be new style sheets, a new menu system. It isn't going to be so complicated. The options in the menu that you only use once, if ever, a year are going to be put somewhere else. So the things that you do all the time. And the nice thing about having the system for so long is we actually track every click behind the scenes. So I know what the most common features are. And I'll be able to make sure that we'd like to have a dashboard interface. I'm not sure if that's going to be ready by September, but that's sort of the starting point, is that dashboard interface, sort of a summary view that you can customize with information that's important to you, and then the ability to get to the applicant list screen quickly, if that's your main, if that's mainly what you do, and I think it is. I mean, we have the quick menu link there now, but it's going to take that to sort of a new level. It's just a lot cleaner interface. A lot fewer options visible until you need them, but still easily accessible, just not at the top of the screen. I think that's about it for that, but just to let you know that's coming. I'm going to try to keep the screens the same. It'll work the same, but behind the scenes it's going to be running on Microsoft's .NET platform, and not our current platform, which is a proprietary platform that we actually are borrowing from a company in Boston right now. Not that they're telling us to stop using it, but they could. So we want to get onto some different technology. So that's exciting. It'll be a lot of work, but it's really what we need to do to sort of move this product to the next level. And it probably won't be called Gravit anymore either, just so you know. We're going to come up with a new name. So maybe we'll have a contest. Okay, are there any other questions about anything I've discussed? I don't know if am I over time here? No? Keep going? All right. just chat for a while. Yes?
Is there any, in our department, we have different subgroups, and we would like to be able to sort of send applicants in each subgroup to the respective faculty in that group. And as a checklist on the main application, and so it's transportation versus water resources or something like that. Is there any way to put that information on the main applicant list, first one that you see when you go, when you say few applicants? Is there any way, is there a filter option for that?
Okay, so would you want to assign faculty based on a decision that they made for that question?
Exactly.
So if you looked at each individual, I'm just thinking of a way.
What we have to do now is actually open up the application and see which box they checked on the front page.
Yeah. Well, you could show that section in the review interface now. It could be one of those sections that expand down, but it sounds to me like you want it showing all the time on top.
Well, it would save us a lot of time.
Well, but how would it know which? I mean, I think we need to not only show it, but there has to be some logic in the when the assignments are taking place. There has to be some logic in place that says, okay, this student made this selection for that question, and because of that, they're assigned to this faculty member, right?
Or at least a group of faculty, right?
A group of faculty.
So each subgroup of faculty would be reviewing applicants who check that particular box.
Okay. All right. So let me.
My department does the same thing, but I just do it manually. So if I have a volcanology applicant, all 4 volcanology faculty, I will want them to review that. It's manual.
That's the reason.
It's manual and it takes forever.
Okay. How many? About how many students are you reviewing now?
I think we have about 500 to review.
Okay. Yeah. All right. All right. Yeah, that's actually one that I have heard before, but it didn't make it on the list because I didn't want to do it. No, I'm just teasing. Okay. Yeah, that came up for a very first meeting. I'm sorry that was overlooked. Base assignments. Question. Okay. All right, so I'll have to think about that. So you think that if you put faculty in different groups,
Well, we could do that, or we have one faculty who's kind of coordinating each group and which assigns that one faculty.
and then they would have to go in and,
And then they would distribute it themselves to the members of the group.
okay. Well, let me look at that. I do something similar with international admissions. They have reviewers too. It's sort of the same thing, the same idea, where they have a bunch of applicants and then a bunch of reviewers. And then there are criteria that Stephen Shaw can set to say, for example, all students from this country, are assigned to this person, or all students who's from this country with their last name beginning with X, this letter, are assigned to. So that's how he distributes. So you're asking for something similar, but instead, those criteria, we would have, this question. It's the sort of, how do we associate? Now, I'll actually just show, I have to log into the top level. I'll grab it to show you that. But the way that works is for each reviewer on their setup page, or the user setup page, where we put in their name and their username and their email address and their password and things like that, and decide what security level they are. On that page is where these decisions are made. So to do this, which it could be done, but on this page, where let's see, Tab manager users. So if I just look at a user, so this is a user setup page, and I can say, they have access. Their username is, what their security level is. So on this page is where that decision would probably most likely be made, where you say, for reviewing. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be on this page, but a page like this for each individual where you could set that up. Sort of map the question option, the option selected with the faculty. And how many different options are there for that question? 5. Okay, so if you can imagine, it would be, if your list of faculty and then maybe a drop down where you would choose Well, would it be multiple? Or,
Some of them could have.
yeah. Okay, so for each person, then I would give you a checkbox for each one, and you say, okay, if any of these options are selected, they would be assigned automatically to this person. And then if you had, I imagine that the balancing algorithm, if let's say you had six faculty and three, and then 6 questions, 6 options in that question, you could assign 3 of those options to 3 of your faculty, and the other 3 to the remaining 3. And then when it distributed the load, the assignment load, it would just take those options into account. And again, that's exactly how Stephen Shaw's international assignment engine works. So I think that would be good.
Something like something like
Yeah, it'd get you a lot closer than this current approach is getting you, where you have to pull up the application and see what they said and then go back in and find the person. Okay, okay, great. So 9 question options, okay. And then somebody else had a question over there. No? Okay. You guys are playing games with me now. All right, I think that's it for me. I can stay up here for a while. Do you have anything else you want to talk about? No? Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Again, look for these changes to be online within the next couple of weeks. I know Chris didn't want me to give you a deadline, but if I don't give you one, it's never going to get done. So this will force me to really get on it and just push everything else aside that comes up. So thanks, and we'll see you soon. Or as we say, did I ever use this joke? I always say, we'll see you soon, but nobody ever laughs. If you use that, you have to give me credit. Oh, this first. Oh, you don't want this? Oh. You don't want the mic. You guys did the presentation?
Everything's fine.
Okay, we're up next. So it's data time. Data's the new buzzword in higher ed, so I think everybody's excited about this. As Mike just said, 15 years of admission data, so I'm very excited for the data people in the room. I'm sure you guys are just crazy. Can't wait to get in and see what we have to offer. Okay, so for those of you that were at the last COGSRO meeting, Alex and myself spoke about data, and we looked at a new tool that we're trying to implement in our office to assist with doing some data analysis. We used dummy data and pretty much showed you what we were hoping to do. Now today we have actual live visuals, live dashboards that we've actually used and incorporated actual graphic data to make some in this presentation. Okay, so for those of you that were here, this might seem very familiar, and we've made some additions to it. As you can see, our Tableau is going to be our primary visualization tool that's going to assist in making what we pushed out there a lot more readable, a lot more easy to understand. For those of you that got the email on Fridays, the application activity emails, you would have noticed a couple months ago that the format has changed. It's no more Excel reports, it's now in PDFs, which we love PDFs. And that's all done, that's all automatic now. So what you see on Fridays is just Friday's update of the information. The good thing about that is, now that it's all automatic in Tableau, you can see these reports every single day if you want. I know we're at the end of the application cycle, so now it's more enrollment driven, but moving forward, I guarantee you're gonna enjoy this because now you can go in every day. You don't have to wait until Friday to see what Jen is gonna send out. You can go in and look at those reports yourself. We want you to write this down because that is the website. I'm not sure if you can read that very well. But that's the link to where you can actually log in and see these dashboards whenever you feel like logging in. That's the username. As you can see, it says contact Jen to password. So if you email Alex or myself, we would let you know exactly what the password would be so you can get it and just take a look and see what we've got in there. Goal update. So we told you we're going to try and automate the reports. We've done that. The reports are ready for you to see. The reports are ready for you to utilize in terms of the daily dashboard. We're also doing some other things. We have some other reports that we're currently trying to move into Tableau. Those are going to be coming. But we're asking you to go in and just effectively, just to see what we have in there right now. I'm going to give you a short demo of the automated reports that we've done. And then, for those of you that's been here for a while, you also know that we do fact books every year. And I got 2 calls so far asking about the fall 13 fact book. One specifically from engineering, I know. And I can't remember the other one as well. We've been also working to move those fact books into Tableau. For those of you that have been in the fact books, it's a lot of data. They're very detailed, and some of them even take 5 to 10 minutes to even open because of some of the Excel formulas that are in there. So for those of you that know that, it can be a little bit annoying. It crashes computers, it freezes. So we've moved those into Tableau format. We've replicated the fact books also in tabular form. But Alex, my colleague here, has done some crazy things in terms of graphs, charts, pie charts that just make the data a lot easier to understand. And he's going to demo some of that for you too.
Hi, I'm Alex. Thank you, Troy, for that overselling. What we try to do is just move some of the data that was in those Excel sheets into a visualization that can kind of be accessed easily and daily. So I'll show you, this is the website that our link brings you to. This is actually, it's not on our website, it's the APB, Office of the Provost website. And they've kind of hidden this. Sometimes I have to search for Tableau on their page, so you may have to do that if you don't have this bookmarked. But if you just click this link, Analytics Powered by Tableau, it'll give you the standard instructions. And if you click this Enter UV's Institutional Analysis, it'll prompt you for the username and password. So, 80% sure that's correct. And again, we didn't want to publish this password, but it's available if you just send an email to one of us. We will provide that for you. So, yeah.
Okay, so what Alex just did is log into the Tableau dashboard. Once you get in, security will allow you to see what we want you to see that we have published. But there are different dashboards that you will have access to eventually. The one that is actually running right now is the application activity comparison dashboard. I think some of you have been here, some of you haven't, but you're probably familiar with this based on the PDF that gets sent out every Friday.
The screen resolution is not ideal. It'll look better.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a little better. Okay, so you might recognize this format, but the good thing is, as I said, this is automated daily. So now you can go in and instead of waiting on Fridays to get a PDF printout of a static report, you can actually go in and effectively manipulate this report for information that you want. And since Cass is the first school in our list, we have a school filter here, and I'm going to use Cass as my demo school. So let's just say Joe's Syracuse. Joe's here, and he wants to look at Cass data. He doesn't really care about anyone else. He can go and he can look at Cass data at a very, very high level. But in the event that he wants to see exactly what's going on in, let's say, anthropology, he can go in and he can actually look at anthropology's information, just anthropology alone, and just highlight that. Let's say he wants to know the difference between anthropology, maybe PhD and the MA. You can actually dig down and get even more detailed information about that. So what I'm saying is you have the ability now to effectively look at the programs on a daily basis and get a lot more information than you would based on the previous spreadsheets. We have different views also here because similar to the Excel reports that we sent out, we have an on-application view, an international application view, which use the same format, domestic application, and once again, since yields are actually a big thing right now, we have a yield view for you. You don't have to do any of the calculations. We've automated that for you also, and you can dig down into your individual school. It provides a lot of information instead of going through different Excel sheets that I think is just a lot more accessible now to individuals. So what we're asking you to do is to log in to the dashboard here. There's a comment section on the bottom, which I can't see from this view here, but if you leave any comments down there, we'll take feedback and we'll make adjustments. That way it can be more effective because you guys are the users in the end. Alex is now going to show you what the other dashboard looks like, and this is the fact book dashboard, which is amazing.
Okay, so we have, we've published these fact books. These are live now. You can access them once you get the password. The first interface is probably familiar if you've looked at the Excel sheets that we've published. It's basically just tabular data, and we're zoomed in a little bit too much here, but it's okay. It's tabular data, just the numbers of total completed, accepted, and enrolled applications from fall 2013. And in Tableau, we've been able to set up some filters on the side, so if you don't, well, first of all, you can go into any one of these individual schools and kind of, isolate the data, so you can expand and collapse it as you like. But you can also use these filters on the side to look at only, New York State residents. It'll take a second to load here, but so you can look at only applications from New York State residents. You can look at sorry, just a second. You can look at gender, whether the student was a UB undergraduate, so you can kind of isolate the numbers and just look at how many applications you received from these specific groups of students. So that's kind of a familiar view you may be used to. The other thing that we've been working on is the visualization of this data. So we have a couple of tabs here regarding the number of your applications, kind of breakdown of the type of applications that you receive. So you can look at all apps here, and you can see that's the blue is kind of your total applications, the orange is your completed only, green is your admitted, and the red is your enrolled. And you can kind of just use these filters to look at those in isolation if you'd like. We have a filter here for the size of the school. The visualization gets a little wonky if you're, the School of Nursing, for instance, which is engineering is on the side here, and kind of means that it's just huge. But if you want to only look at the smaller schools, you can do that. And you can, look at architecture and social work, and I think nursing is, yeah. And you can hover over this and get a little more detail. So, Roswell Park's completed applications that were not accepted amounts to 129. And again, you can use the other filters to look only at domestic, in-state residents, and you can combine these two. So if you'd like to, so if you're looking at domestic, in-state students with a UB bachelor's degree, you can get an idea of how many students, and kind of look at the the breakdown of how many were accepted, how many were enrolled, of the ones who accepted, and then by gender here as well. You can kind of do that, whatever you're looking for. Then we have a couple sheets for the individual rates within them. So the completion rate is kind of a 100% view. It looks at the completed applications as a percentage of your total applications, and you have the same filters. And you can also, if you add it here, you can remove programs if you'd like, or you can just look at, American Studies applications, for instance. So that's your completion rate, that should be labeled in here. It's a little bit slower on the server than it is for us. We use the software to build it, and that's kind of moving very quickly. But give it a second and we'll get there. Then we have other sheets for acceptance rates, so it's kind of the same idea with the accepted students over the number of completed applications, and your enrollment yields, the enrolled students over your accepted applications. And you can look at visually, at a glance, you can see how many, see what your percentage was, maybe how it compares to other schools. And if you'd like, you can drill down into that tabular data as well. Then I have 2 dashboards here, about 50 dashboards that are being published at the university, but this is one more for you. So this is just domestic applications and a couple of the kind of bio-demo metrics that we collect. So you can look at gender, ethnicity, in-state or out-of-state residency, and whether or not they received a UB bachelor's degree. And you can use the filters on the side again, so if you just want to look at your accepted applications, you can do that. You can take out, if I don't really care about non-degree students or professional schools, maybe we're only concerned with masters and PhDs, so I can take out every other category. So you can look at that, and each one of these is a filter as well. So you can look at only, your in-state residents and see how that breaks down. You can look at only, in-state without a UB bachelor's degree, and you can see. You have to be careful when you're using these filters because they kind of build on top of one another, and you can I get confused very easily on what I still have active. So you click off of them if you don't need that metric anymore. And this is only for domestic students. We have a separate one for international. A lot of this we don't collect. Ethnicity and in-state residency is not really relevant to international students. So we have just gender and the country of origin, which you can see down here. This is like India, China, Iran, and we have aggregation based on the top 10 countries that are your feeders for whatever program you select. So, if you want to look at accepted applications in school management, it's 54% of the international acceptance students come from India, and you can hover over and get more details there. So that's a look at a fact book, and that's live. We are still kind of taking feedback if you'd like to go in and play around and suggest other filters. Oh yeah, the comments there. So you can send us an email if you'd like to make a comment, or you can just leave one here. We'll check it periodically and suggest whether you'd like a new filter or whether you'd like a new measure to look at, or if you're having a technical problem, we can try to look into it. So that's something you can use. And I also want to show you another project that's kind of in beta right now. It's come together in the last couple of weeks. It's not official, so we're not publishing. We're going to take it down very soon after we get back to our office. But this is an enrollment tracking sheet. So it uses data from student term V and student registration V for the data folks in here. And it just tracks the kind of the days out, as you can see on the bottom of the page here. It'll just track the overall total enrollment as of a certain day. So here we can look at the last one 5/21, that was yesterday, it's the most recent data we have. It'll give you the total enrollment as of that day compared to the previous years. So we're ahead overall of fall 13 and fall 14. Sorry, fall 13 and fall 12. And again, we've got, Tableau's dynamic filters, so you can look at individually by school. And take them out and look at only social work. No one from social work is here, so.
I thought you were on
All right. You can look at social work and management if for some reason you're interested in that, but, okay. So there's your filter for management. You can, again, break it down, take out your other degrees, take out your doctoral degrees, so you're looking only at master's students. The new and continuing is also a filter here, so you can see your new enrollment doesn't pick up until much later. Citizenship, domestic, international, and the external irregular funding. So you can, management, that's a big deal because they have a lot of crazy external programs. So you can just get a general idea of where you're at compared to last year and the year before. It's not official data. This is not, the formal SUNY reported enrollment for your tuition purposes. So once we do publish it, I will add that massive caveat. But it should be, it's functional data. It should give you a general sense of, if you're ahead or behind, and within that, are you doing okay on master's but not PhD and those kind of filters.
Does this have the ability to do any sort of predictive, if you keep this pace, like a shaded orange line to say here's where you could end up if you base it on last year, this is where you'll end up, or if you're at the pace you're using this year?
Yes. Did Chris tell you to ask that question? Because that's the next step.
So Tableau does have a forecasting tool in it, but as you said, this is still beta, so it's more to come.
Yeah, the next step is to do that kind of predictive modeling. Tableau does have some capabilities for it, but we have our own ideas for how to go about that. So yes, that's definitely on our radar.
This is all head count. Is there a way to do this in credit hours?
There is a way. We, at the 30,000 foot level, we look mostly at head count, as you know. Yeah, there should be a way to do it, and I think that's a little further down the line. We'd like to refine this and get it to a point where we can publish it, be confident in the data.
But the other aspect of this too has to do with the university coming up with an agreed upon definition. And being in graduate enrollment management services, we don't want to be the ones dictating that. And the university needs to clean up their act of that piece first. But it's certainly something that many of you have asked about, and I think it's very important. Many units have struggled with the fact that, we're bringing in the head count, but they're not bringing in university revenue because they have 75 people with one credit, and even though that's good for SUNY, it's not good for revenue. So that is something that we have struggled with to a certain degree as well, but it's coming down the line. But I have to say also that institutional analysis has been an outstanding partner in allowing us the ability to use Tableau with them. And I think that with the melding of the minds, that's going to be coming.
Do you have another question?
Alex, how far can we drill down geographically? I know I always saw some Tableau reports that if we were trying to say, okay, we have a lot of grad students from Albany, for what programs? Because then we can do
So
some.
he said this is beta. We have, there are other reports that we have. I'm currently doing some geographic analysis and some market analysis, but they're not published because they're too, we don't like to publish things that we can validate and we can stand behind. So, but there's a lot more things than what you saw today. These things are live now because we vetted them internally and externally, but there are different maps and based on enrolled, accepted, and completed applications that you'll be able to drill down into.
Yeah, as far as the enrollment is concerned, though, there's a lot of biodemo data and hub tables that we could utilize. We started out kind of from looking at the general program data, your program plan degree. But But if that's something that's a major concern, then you can make a comment on the Tableau website, and we will definitely look at how to integrate those measures as well. Yeah.
Will analysis be available also for the graduate inquiry pool?
Well, there's a lot of data on that. It's a little less organized, I think.
And now that we have the new SQL server, we have access to a lot more data. But we've just been working on Tableau with application data. We recently moved to enrollment data, so eventually we'll probably get to the inquiry tables too.
As you can see, applicant data is pretty well established right now. The problem at the university is the inconsistency on the classifications of enrollment data and how people interpret it. The other problem is, given the decentralized nature of inquiries and how you handle inquiries and how inquiries are coming in, and then even to make that even more compounded, prospects, because prospects are different than inquiries. And how do we track all of that? That is a conversation that's going to take place, and how we're handling that, but it's a point well taken, because you also, and I'm going to be talking about this in a minute, which was a perfect segue, how we measure our success, and part of that is prospects and inquiries and how we're all doing that.
Any other questions?
You have a fall 13 fact book. Is there the idea of just making a fact book and then the first filter for the semester? Because we enroll a lot of students in summer, which is why our fall numbers are very small, because we start a lot of students in summer.
That's a definite possibility. Part of the issue with doing multiple terms is that the data quickly gets pretty huge. So we might have some performance issues with that. Just the 3 years of enrollment data is something like 30,000 rows in that table. So if we can do it without losing a lot of speed, I think that's a possibility. The way they've been published in the past have been these kind of individual, fall 13, fall 12.
Sorry,
so that was our
didn't
intention,
catch
but it's
that.
something we can look at for sure. Okay, if there are no other questions, the last thing I just want to mention is that we're investigating retention and persistence metrics, which is yet another buzzword that gets thrown around sometimes. There are issues with that, but we're working on it, and we're hoping to have something to show you maybe at the next COGSRO meeting. So it's a little preview of what's to come. And again, we welcome your feedback, so just shoot us an email or comment on that Tableau sheet if you have an idea that you should consider.
You need access, so expect emails.
It's very disappointing.
Now I'll pass it on to Chris.
So I had talked a little bit about measuring success and some of the mechanisms that we all use in our offices differently of how we measure how we're doing compared to previous cycles and analyzing these pieces of things. So I wanted to briefly go over a couple of things. Right now, how are you measuring success of your applicant pools within your units? Just a couple of people. How are you measuring your success of knowing how you're doing? Typically. Head count? Deposits? What else?
And for the people that send it themselves, the response rates go much higher. So we are continuing to make improvements to this. I think for next year, we'd like to have more people involved in setting up their own communication. It's good for students to get emails from familiar faces. Sometimes it's better. Sometimes Jen's is that familiar face, and that's okay. But sometimes it's someone in your department, whoever the email communication usually comes from in your school. We'd like to increase that participation, really personalize the surveys, and get the response rates up even more. We are currently in the process of distributing the reports from these. The nice thing about the way that we did this with SurveyMonkey was that we can send you the total report, which most of you probably already got by now, and within the next week or two, we'll send out the individualized reports. But did anybody have questions about the surveys, the process, suggestions? Did anybody see the report? So if you have any feedback for me, any ways that you think that we can improve this for next year, please let me know. But I think that we're on the right track, and there may be other surveys that you can think of, maybe for accreditation purposes, we can talk Let me explain what I mean by that. Basically, we set up something on our internal site, you can sign up for it to receive information, some examples of what information might be in the newsletter, grad updates, training once that happens, possibly projects that we're working on, like fair visits coming up. So just sort of a way to be informed without spamming everyone's email inbox that doesn't want to see it. So how many might be interested in maybe signing up for an internal newsletter? Yay. All right. That's good to know. So that's on the horizon. We realize that people want to be informed, but we also realize that we send out a ton of emails and that often that gets lost in the shuffle. So we don't want to bombard you with information, but we also want people to pay attention to what we're saying. Short turnaround time for petitions, that was one of the big things from the internal survey Chris mentioned. We are working on that. We're investigating ways that we can make this process more efficient. Website optimization is a huge one. I know a lot of people are also working on this, responsive web design update in their own schools. We are working on this. We're also working on maybe consolidating some of the meeting points on our external website. So that's in the pipeline. Responsive web design, for anybody who's not working on it, basically we realize that we have a 5 to 10% increase in mobile and tablet usage on our page. I'm assuming it's probably similar and going up on your pages as well. So that's really important. Within the next 1 to 2 years, we'd like to really have that in place. And we reduce reuse recycle. So we have a lot of email communication, a ton of external communication going out. And really over the next 1 to 2 years, I want to work on organizing that, consolidating things. Let's get rid of the stuff that we might not need. Some of it's fantastic. I don't want to delete or eliminate any emails, but there's a lot of improvements that we can make. Recently, we worked on updating the master's letters for the College of Arts and Sciences. It was hugely successful. You wouldn't realize it, but there are a lot of acceptance letters that never get opened, and that seems crazy, right? How do they know what to do? So really working on improving some of the open rates and the click-throughs for really important documentation is in the works. And a lot of some of our old letters that we haven't seen in a while, things that we can use to communicate with students at different stages in the pipeline, can get reused. We really want to get more people into Email Manager, get comfortable with it. If anybody wants to learn how to use it, please contact me. Or enrollment managers that want to learn how to use it, because you're the only ones who can, please contact me. We've had a lot of success. There's just a lot of opportunity to automate things and make your lives easier. It might be a little bit more work up front to use Email Manager or to go through your emails and figure out which ones are old and need to go. But I'm happy to sit down with anybody who wants to do that. And so recently, actually GSU is a great example. So we're working on automating a lot of their emails. We've put an entire piece of their communications plan pretty much into the system. And we're really looking forward to seeing how that plays out for fall 15. But it's just a way for us to get out of this reactive mode that we're in. So right now, Gems is small. Like Chris said, we have limited resources, we have limited time. But we're really working to put ourselves in a from a communication standpoint, really working to move towards a more proactive stage. Have a planned communications plan, and we still are working on a calendar of events so that everybody can see what's happening. We're working on documentation for our general process, like what happens to students when they're here in the funnel, and when do they get this email. So we're working on visuals for that, and it sounds rudimentary and silly, but it's really important that we communicate that with everybody, make sure we're all on the same page. So does anyone have any questions about that? Yeah.
Just back to the surveys, is that or are they planned on being shared with UB administration?
That's an excellent question. In the past, I'm not sure if they've had big, yeah. Yeah, I'm happy to share them with whoever. There's no secret. One of my big goals is, as many of you know, to increase transparency. So if there's like anything they want to know, I don't know everybody. But I know data is not that way, so I'll leave that up to Chris. Any other questions? Is there anything you would want to see potentially on the newsletter that I might not have mentioned?
I think to answer Jim's question too, I think the reason for having the surveys is number one, to help you, and then also and to help us, and then number two, to use it as an advocacy tool. Because I think that the piece sometimes that the assumption at the graduate level is that, oh, well, you're on an undergraduate dominated campus, which the majority of campuses in the country are, but there are some undergraduate only. But using the data as a mechanism, having larger response rate, more data can only be more powerful at communicating a message to people that there are areas of problems. If applicants are complaining about communication, if applicants are complaining that they're getting financial offers to go to another school that is much higher than UB, if you have 700 responses of that nature, and you can then use that as a leveraging tool with administration to show that we have a problem, we're going to have even more of a problem if you're not proactive about doing something. I think that's more effective than having all of us sending out our own surveys and then us sending something out and then this applicant being like, well, I've already answered this 20 times and you're getting redundancy and you're getting half responses. So I think that the biggest piece of it is helping us and helping you, but then the other one would be helping ourselves together if we can.
From a communications perspective, I was going to say, like, we spent the last year, at least I spent the last year, really just getting a handle on what's going on. So now we're at the point where, okay, we have this data, we know what people are sending, even if it's not within Bradman. Now how do we utilize this information? So we're awesome at collecting data, but now we're starting to the point where we want to use that to actually make decisions and drive positive change, and not just keep collecting. So that's where we're at. I think that's the last slide, right? Oh, I'm going to hand over to Lisa. She's going to just give you an update on the McNair graduate school visit.
Do you want to bring up a new window?
Go up the window.
You can just type it in the URL.
Yeah, just type in the URL and
So a lot of you might have already seen the improvements that we made to the website. Okay, I'm not the only one.
I have a MacBook, but this is,
I have a Mac too.
and, yeah, okay. So real quick, I know I'm running out of time here, I just wanted to briefly go over some of the changes for this year. And we're actually at our 10th-year anniversary for doing the UB Graduate School visit with McNair Scholars Research Office. I know we're a lot of space here with the resolution, but this year we're actually hosting the visit starting at the conference center with the STEM panel. Students are still going to be coming back to the campus. It's on Thursday, July 24th. I know a memo has gone out with information to everybody, but we still wanted to keep everybody informed that you will start getting registration information, hopefully, as we get that information in. So if you do get notified that you have registrants, if you can make sure that you have somebody available for those folks here on campus. Buses will be bringing those students to north, south, and to the Roswell campus for registrants that are coming here. And then we will actually have transportation to each separate campus to alleviate some of the timing constraints that we have had in the past. Some of the other changes that we are doing this year, beside the panelists that we're having, that we're having at the beginning of the visit event, is that we're also doing a live Twitter feed event for the visit this year, starting on Thursday and going through the entire weekend of the conference. And then normally we would do an evaluation form for the visit to get their lunch at the end of our program. This year, the evaluation is going to be done online, and we're doing an iPad giveaway at the end of the grad fair, which normally used to take place on Saturday afternoon. The McNair folks moved it to Friday afternoon. So again, UB participants who want to attend the grad fair, it's free to UB participants, and it's now Friday afternoon, ending at 5:30. So we're encouraging folks to participate in the McNair Graduate School Fair. A little bit better than a middle of the day Saturday afternoon. It's now Friday afternoon, so you're done by the end of the day on Friday. And we are giving away an iPad to the students that are participating in our graduate school visit at the end of the graduate school fair on Friday afternoon. So again, it's Thursday, July 24th. Our participation in the UB graduate school visit. We're excited about this being our 10-year anniversary with them, and we're hoping that the changes that we're doing this year will be exciting for the students, and if it's successful, hopefully those changes will go forward again for next year and improving upon any feedback we get from everybody with this year's visit. So you're welcome to go to our website, take a look at the information we have up there. Our registration form is there on there as well. Any questions? Thanks.
I want to thank everybody for coming today, and as always, if you ever have any questions or concerns, you can always bring them to any of our attention, bring them to my attention, but I look forward to continuing working with all of you. Thank you. Please eat. There's lots of food over here. Yeah.